Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today we are continuing actually from the previous session from verse 1131, Surah Hud. All power belongs to God. I do not claim that I possess the treasures of God, nor do I know the future, nor do I claim to be an angel, nor do I say to those despised by your eyes that God will not bestow any blessings upon them. God knows best what is in their innermost thoughts. If I did this, I would be a transgressor. They said, O Noah, you have argued with us and kept on arguing. We challenge you to bring the doom you threaten us with, if you are truthful. He said, God is the one who brings it to you. If he so wills, then you cannot escape. Even if I advised you, my advice cannot benefit you if it is God's will to send you astray. He is your Lord, and to him you will be returned. If they say, he made up this story, then say, if I made it up, then I am responsible for my crime, and I am innocent of any crime you commit. So this is a very beautiful, actually, description of Noah and his people. And as we move forward, we see that the people who have actually transgressed and disbelieved are saying some things which are similar in all the stories in Quran, and they don't believe, no matter how many times the prophets tell them that you should not actually transgress and you should come on the path of God. They actually don't budge in, and they want to just be against whatever God says. So it continues with Noah was inspired. No more of your people are going to believe beyond those who already believe. Do not be saddened by their actions. So we understand here that God has actually inspired Noah that no matter how much you try, no more people of your actually people that are living in that place are going to believe in me and in my word, and that you are a prophet of God. And beyond that point, it's useless. And we should it says, God says to Noah that you should not be saddened by their actions. They're not going to believe whatever you do. Build the ark under our watchful eyes and with our inspiration, and do not implore me on behalf of those who have transgressed. They are destined to drown. So as we move forward, we will see that um, Noah cannot actually intercede for anybody, no matter who that person is, from his family, relatives, or anybody close. We see that it is useless as we move forward, and we see in the other actually verses. So this part starts with he who laughs last laughs best. While he was building the ark, whenever some of his people passed by him, they laughed at him. He said, you may be laughing at us, but we are laughing at you, just as you are laughing. You will surely find out who will suffer a shameful retribution and incur an everlasting punishment. When our judgment came and the atmosphere boiled over, we said, carry on it, a pair of each kind, together with your family, except those who are condemned. Carry with you those who have believed, and only a few have believed with him. So at the footnote, we see that it says, this is God's proven truth. Noah's ark was made of logs tied together with primitive ropes, as we will see in 54:13. Contrary to the common belief, the flood was limited to the area around today's Dead Sea, and the animals were only Noah's livestock, not every animal that lived on the earth. So if you look at the map, the Google Maps, you see that Dead Sea is around this location where today's Israel and Palestine is located, and it's clearly a depressed area surrounded by mountains. And the flood that we see in Quran is actually only limited to this area, or a little bit more or a little bit less, but it's about this area. It was not the whole surface of the planet Earth. And if you look at this one, actually verse 13 of Surah 54, we see that it says, we carried him on a watercraft made of logs and ropes. But what we have heard and what we have seen in different books that has its own actually roots in Genesis, in Torah, we see that we think that Noah's Ark was a big actually ship that was carrying like different animals, like each kind of like a pair of each kind on planet Earth, and then all the planet Earth was subsumed by water. But that was not the case, and this is another like cartoonish actually picture of Noah's Ark and the animals. And if you go to Genesis 7 in King James Version, you see that it says, and the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast, see, like here it says every clean. So then we will get to the point of whether we should believe in this part and we should think that this is true or not. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Of fowls are also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Although we understand from Quran that it was not the whole earth. And we see in Torah, in Genesis, that it says the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. That this one is also not true. And it was, as it was discussed by the Messenger of Covenant in one of the Quran studies, it was like a couple of hours, and it was not the whole face of the earth. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. So we clearly understand that these are not the words of God, and they have been tampered with in Genesis. So um, we move forward with verse 41. He said, come on board. In the name of God shall be its sailing and its mooring. My Lord is forgiver, most merciful. As it sailed with them in waves like hills, Noah called his son, who was isolated. O my son, come ride with us. Do not be with the disbelievers. He said, I will take refuge on top of a hill to protect me from the water. He said, nothing can protect anyone today from God's judgment. Only those worthy of his mercy will be saved. The waves separated them, and he was among those who drowned. So we see that Noah's son was among the disbelievers and he was drowned, and there was nothing that his father could do about it. Where did the ark land? It was proclaimed, O earth, swallow your water, and O sky, cease. The water then subsided. The judgment was fulfilled. The ark finally rested on the hills of Judea, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It was then proclaimed, the transgressors have perished. And if you look at the footnote, we see the same thing that was mentioned up above. This is God's proven truth. Noah's Ark was made of logs tied together with primitive ropes. And again, in that session with the Messenger of Covenant, I heard that he said nails were not actually invented until David. So, but if you look at, like, for example, the picture of Noah's Ark, I don't think that such a structure can actually stay in place with no nails. And so this is another thing that can be understood from the story of the Noah's Ark, which is tampered with, and this was actually not the shape of Noah's Ark. So contrary to common belief, the flood was limited to the area around today's Dead Sea that we talked about, and the animals were only Noah's livestock, not every animal that lived on earth. 45, Noah implored his Lord, my son is a member of my family, and your promise is the truth. You are the wisest of the wise. So here we understand that Noah was actually trying to implore God on behalf of his son and saying that he's a member of my family, and please forgive him. And the next verse that we see the title, the myth of intercession, he said, "O Noah, he is not of your family. He is unrighteous to ask me. It is unrighteous to ask me for something you do not know. I enlighten you, lest you be like the ignorant." So here, God is telling Noah that your son, you think that he's your son, but he's not your family anymore because he's a actually disbeliever. And I enlighten you, meaning that God enlightened Noah to have the information, to have that wisdom, and he didn't want him to be among the ignorant people. So basically, Noah could not intercede on behalf of his son. So intercession is Satan's most effective bait to entice people into idol worship. However, Abraham could not help his father, nor could Noah help his son, nor could Muhammad help his own relatives. So if we go to 254, we see no intercession. O you who believe, you shall give to charity from the provisions we have given to you before a day comes where there is no trade, no nepotism, meaning that family members cannot pull strings for one another, and no intercession. Nobody can tell God to actually help my, for example, my son, unless it is by the will of God that it is talked about later on. But uh, on a in a nutshell, there is no intercession. The disbelievers are the unjust. One of Satan's clever tricks is attributing the power of intercession to powerless human idols such as Jesus and Muhammad. We will go to Appendix 8 in a bit. But then, as we move with verse 80 and 114 of Surah 9, we see Satan's most effective bait, the myth of intercession. Whether you ask forgiveness for them or do not ask forgiveness for them, even if you ask forgiveness for them 70 times, God will not forgive them. This is God telling Muhammad that even if you ask for forgiveness for those people for 70 times, I'm not going to forgive them. This is because they disbelieve in God and his messenger. God does not guide the wicked people. And at the footnote, we see if Muhammad could not intercede on behalf of his own uncles and cousins, what makes the strangers who never met Muhammad actually think that he will intercede on their behalf? Abraham could not intercede on behalf of his father, nor could Noah intercede on behalf of his son. So if we look at the 9:114, we see the only reason Abraham asked forgiveness for his father was that he had promised him to do so. But as soon as he realized that he was an enemy of God, he disowned him. Abraham was extremely kind, clement. So Abraham clearly couldn't ask for forgiveness for his father. Now, there are some other verses that actually are also mentioned here, 11:46 and 60, verse 4. So if we go to this one, we see Abraham, an example. A good example has been set for you by Abraham. And those with him, they said to their people, we disown you and the idols that you worship besides God. We denounce you, and you will see nothing from us except animosity and hatred until you believe in God alone. However, a mistake was committed by Abraham when he said to his father, I will pray for your forgiveness, but I possess no power to protect you from God. Our Lord, we trust in you and submit to you. To you is the final destiny. So here we see that even in the verse of Quran, it is mentioned that a mistake was committed by Abraham when he said to his father, I will pray for your forgiveness. Well, actually, even Abraham could not do that clearly from the verse of Quran. Now if we look at the actually the footnote of that verse, we see the Arabic word for alone, which is mentioned here, God alone, is wahdahu, which occurs only 6 times in the Quran. One of them refers to upholding the Quran alone, is 1746. The reference to God alone occurs in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 verses. So the sum of and plus yes, plus this, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yes, the sum of these numbers, if we actually add the number of the verse and the number of the surah, we see 70, actually 7, 70, 39, 45, 40, 12, 84, 60, and 4. Then they equal 361, or 19 times 19. This emphasizes that the main theme of Quran is worship God alone. No idols set beside God, and basically no intercession. We can pray for guidance for the idolaters, not forgiveness, since God's law is that the idolatry is the only unforgivable offense. So if you go to 448 and 4116, we see God does not forgive idolatry, but he forgives lesser offenses for whomever he wills. Anyone who sets up idols beside God has forged a horrendous offense. Idol worship is not forgivable if maintained until death. So here is important: if maintained until death. One can always repent from any offense, including idolatry, before death comes. But not some place down, it says, there is another verse that says that not exactly when the death comes that the person says, I repent. No, it's like before the time of the death. Then 418 says, not acceptable is the repentance of those who commit sins until death comes to them. Then they say, now I repent. Nor is it acceptable from those who die as disbelievers. For these, we have prepared a painful retribution. Before, and then if we go to 4066, we see before God's blessings upon him, Muhammad used to worship idols. So we understand that even Muhammad was worshiping idols before becoming a prophet and before understanding what's going on. Say, I have been enjoined from worshiping the idols you worship beside God. When the clear revelations came to me from my Lord, I was commanded to submit to the Lord of the universe. And the footnote says the Arabic word nahiyat, if I'm not mistaken, used in this verse indicates the stopping of something that was going on. So he was like actually, oh yeah, the word is nahy. Basically, actually, he was told not to follow anymore or to stop. Yes. Then we see in 171, which is about Trinity, a false doctrine. O people of the scripture, do not transgress the limits of your religion and do not say about God except the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary, was a messenger of God, and his word that he had sent to Mary and a revelation from him. Therefore, you shall believe in God and his messengers. You shall not say Trinity. You shall refrain from this for your own good. God is only one God. Be he glorified. He is much too glorious to have a son. To him belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. God suffices as Lord and Master. And then 93:7 says, he found you astray and guided you. So it is God who guides us. And 116 says, God does not forgive idol worship if maintained until death, and he forgives lesser offenses for whomever he wills. Anyone who idolizes any idol beside God has strayed far astray. So we see, like, up to this point, we see that idol worship is the thing that actually the sin that brought us here. And since humans were like actually not sure and in doubt, they were actually given a second chance. And clearly we didn't take the second chance, or else we would have become like animals or flowers or trees or stars and mountains and things like that. And now we are here as humans, and this is our final chance. This is the third and the final chance that we have to redeem ourselves out of the sin that we have committed in the great feud. So, okay, so anyone who idolizes any idol beside God has strayed far astray. A simple definition of idolatry is that believing that anything beside God can help you. So, if we go to Appendix 8, we see that it is about the myth of intercession. To believe that anyone other than God can intercede on our behalf to have our sins forgiven or our wishes fulfilled is to set up partners with God. This is idolatry. The Quran proclaims that all intercession belongs to God, 39:44, and that there will be no intercession on the day of judgment, 254 that we talked about up top. The myth of intercession is one of Satan's most effective tricks to dupe millions of people into idol worship. Millions of Christians believe that Jesus will intercede for them at God, and millions of Muslims believe that Muhammad will intercede on their behalf. Consequently, these people idolize Jesus and Muhammad. And I also can add to this that Shiite Muslims believe that their 12 imams can intercede on their behalf, and they have created through ages, they have created all sorts of blasphemous actually duas or prayers to God that actually address those saints or those imams, and they have fabricated and created lots of different types of prayers that I don't know who they pray to, and they pray, they seemingly pray to God for that person, or they pray to that person so that that person can intercede with God, something along those lines. But anyhow, it is completely messed up, and all sorts of fabrications and all sorts of lies and superstitions have crept into Islam, and as we see what is happening with the Islamic culture and the Islamic countries, and most of their problems comes from idol worship that many of them are unaware of, unfortunately. The concept of intercession is utterly illogical. Those who believe in Muhammad's intercession, for example, claim that he will ask God to forgive them and admit them into paradise. They imagine Muhammad on the day of judgment choosing the candidates for his intercession. If you ask those who believe in intercession, how will Muhammad recognize those who deserve this intercession? They tell you God will tell him. So it seems that they believe that God will tell Muhammad that, for example, this person can go to paradise, and according to this concept, a person will go to Muhammad and request his intercession. Muhammad will then ask God whether this person deserves his intercession or not. Then God will inform Muhammad that the person deserves to go to paradise. And then Muhammad will turn around and tell God that the person deserves to go to paradise. So this is even like this story is illogical, even if you think about it. From a logical standpoint, this story even is illogical, but it's so confusing that those people who want to believe it are duped into believing this story, but it's absolutely illogical. The blasphemy is obvious. Those who believe in intercession make God a secretary of their idol Muhammad. God be glorified. Since the Quran is the most accurate book, it acknowledges that everyone in paradise will intercede on behalf of his or her loved ones. Please God, admit my mother into paradise. This intercession will work if the person's mother deserves to go to paradise. So from 255, and then we see God, there is no other God besides him, the living, the eternal. Never a moment of unawareness or slumber overtakes him. To him belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. Who could intercede with him? except in accordance with his will. He knows their past and their future. No one attains any knowledge except as he wills. His dominion encompasses the heavens and the earth, and ruling them never burdens him. He is the Most High, the Great. So, and we can see that here it says, who could intercede with him except in accordance with his will? Then 2109, on that day, intercession would be useless, except for those permitted by the most gracious and whose utterance conform to his will. Then 2128, he knows their future and their past. They do not intercede, except for those already accepted by him. And they are worried about their own necks. The myth of intercession is Satan's most effective bait, and it is Appendix 8 that we are reading right now. Then I will go forward. Thus, intercession, thou, it will take place in this manner, is utterly useless. We learn from the Quran that Abraham, God's beloved servant. So we know that actually Abraham was called Khalilullah, so the best servant, the beloved servant, or the best friend, could not intercede on behalf of his father. 9:114 that we talked about up top. Noah could not intercede on behalf of his son. 11:46 that we talked about. Muhammad could not intercede on behalf of his uncle Abi Lahab. So 111. Condemned are the works of Abi Lahab, and he is condemned. So Abi Lahab was Muhammad's uncle and the leader of the opposition. His wife carried out a campaign of persecution against Muhammad and the believers. Like all descriptions of heaven and hell, the rope of thorns is an allegory. His money and whatever he has accomplished will never help him. He has incurred the blazing hell. Or even relatives, 980, that we talked about up top, that the 70 times, even if you ask for their forgiveness for 70 times. What makes anyone think that a prophet or a saint will intercede on behalf of a perfect stranger? So let's go to all these verses, and by the end of this verse, if somebody is watching this actually file, would I hope, inshallah, that they won't think about intercession anymore, because all of these are verses of Quran. 248. Beware of the day when no soul can avail another soul. No intercession will be accepted. No ransom can be paid, nor can anyone be helped. 123. Beware of the day when no soul will help another soul. No ransom will be accepted. No intercession will be useful, and no one will be helped. 651. And preach with this Quran to those who reverence the summoning before their Lord. They have none beside him as a Lord and Master, nor an intercessor, that they may attain salvation. 670. You shall disregard those who take their religion in vain, as if it is a social function. This is very interesting. Many people are using, actually are Muslims, and many people are Christians because of the social function of the religion, as if God doesn't matter, and they disregard their religion and they disregard God, and they just want to be with their friends, just to go to mosque, to be with their friends, or to go to mosque so that their boss sees them that actually they are doing this, they are going to prayers. As I remember in Iran, unfortunately, there was something called it was a sort of a filtering device, and whenever a person wanted to go work for a sort of governmental company or a governmental office, they had to go through a process of a sorting that a clergyman or basically a clergyman would sit in front of you and then start asking you about Islam, the Shiite Islam, and then ask you to read Quran, to read the Arabic, and not even understanding the meaning of it. and then they would ask to see whether you go to prayers, like which mosque do you go to prayers, and who is the imam of that mosque, you know. So it was like more of a socio-political function in countries like Iran, and of course other countries as well. But knowing about that situation, this verse is about that. You shall disregard those who take their religion in vain, as if it is a social function, and are totally absorbed in this worldly life. Remind with this Quran, lest a soul may suffer the consequences of its evil earnings. It has none beside God as a Lord and Master, nor an intercessor. If it could offer any kind of ransom, it would not be accepted. They suffer the consequences of the evil works they earn. They have incurred hellish drinks and a painful retribution because of their disbelief. You have come, so 694, you have come back to us as individuals, just as we created you the first time. And you have left behind what we provided for you. We do not see with you the intercessors that you idolized and claim that they will help you. All ties among you have been severed. The idols you set up have abandoned you. So this verse clearly says that we are individual souls. Of course, we are born in families and we have fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters and children, but we are all individuals, meaning that all the family ties that we have, that we dearly respect and we hold on to, is actually it's something that we have created for ourselves in this on this planet. In Quran, of course, it talks about the fact that we should not be actually rough on our parents, or we should not say off to them, you know, so meaning that we should not talk loud with them or be angry with them. But other than that, even if the parents are disbelievers, we have to disown them, you know. So according to the verses of Quran, we should not we shouldn't have anything to do with the disbelievers. So this is something that we have to have in mind, and inshallah, God helps us by staying on His path and not idolizing anything or anyone beside Him until our death. So even here it says that the intercessors that actually some people idolize and claim that they will help them on the day of resurrection. On the day of resurrection, all ties are severed, and the idols abandon them and they will disown them. So previously, in some previous actually verses, we saw that um, prophet actually Jesus will disown those people who idolize him, even it is mentioned in Bible that he will disown those people on the day of resurrection, but still people idolize him. 753. Are they waiting until all prophecies are fulfilled? The day such fulfillment comes to pass, those who disregarded it in the past will say, the messenger of our Lord have brought the truth. Are there any intercessors to intercede on our behalf? Would you send us back so that we change our behavior and do better works than what we did? They have lost their souls, and their own innovations have caused their doom. So, even from this part, we see that innovations, different types of innovations which have been created in different religions, in different sects of religions, and in different actually communities, it shows that people are not actually and all these innovations have been created because of the idea of intercession and because of idolizing people or saints or prophets, so that they one day come and save you on the day of resurrection. But all of it is in vain, and the verse in Quran says that they have lost their souls and their own innovations have caused their doom. Even if they go back, they would do the same thing. That's why they're not given a second time. Um, 10:3, your only Lord is God, the one who created the heavens and earth in 6 days, then assumed all authority. He controls all matters. There is no intercessor except in accordance with his will. Such is God your Lord. You shall worship him. Would you not take heed? Then 1987, no one will possess the power to intercede except those who conform to the laws of the most gracious. 26:100, now we have no intercessors. 30:13, their idols will have no power to intercede on their behalf. On the contrary, they will disown their idols. No mediator between God and you. 32:4, God is the one who created the heavens and the earth and everything between them in 6 days, then assumed all authority. You have none beside him as Lord, nor do you have an intercessor. Would you not take heed? And apart from that, I remember something else, that this verse was also mentioned in the first video of actually the Messenger of Covenant, which was talking about the miracles of Quran and the scientific facts which are mentioned in Quran. It talks about the dark matter that scientists and astrophysicists talk about, and say that what is between like the matters that we have, like for example between Earth and the sun or the moon, what is between them? They haven't come to any conclusion, and they say that they have called it dark matter. And subhanallah, we see in this verse that it says that God is the one who created the heavens and the earth and everything between them in 6 days. 36:23, shall I set up beside him gods? If the most gracious willed any harm for me, their intercession cannot help me one bit, nor can they rescue me. 39:43, the myth of intercession. Have they invented intercessors to mediate between them and God? Say, what if they do not possess any power nor understanding? So this verse is very interesting. It said, have they invented intercessors? So other than, like, for example, prophets and saints, it's very interesting. In countries like Iran, you see that even in the actually modern days, you see that all of a sudden a place is found and they go and build a mosque on it and say that, well, this person who is like buried here was the son of this saint who was related to that saint, and like goes down the path of the 12 imams. And then, okay, new idols are created, and then people people go there and actually ask for intercession. So it's really interesting that they invent intercessors. 39:44, say, all intercession belongs to God. To him belongs all sovereignty of the heavens and the earth. Then to him you will be returned. 40:18, no intercession. Warn them about the imminent day when the hearts will be terrified and many will be remorseful. The transgressors will have no friend nor an intercessor to be obeyed. 43:86, none of those whom they idolize beside him possess any power to intercede unless their intercession coincides with the truth and they fully know. 53:26, not even the angels in the heaven possess us authority to intercede. This is interesting. Not even the angels in the heaven possess authority to intercede. We know that angels are much, much stronger than mankind, in the sense of like having the power to like go between our actually universe and the first universe in matter of days, which like mount up to 50,000 days in our calendar. And even they don't possess the authority to intercede, let alone puny mankind or puny humans like Muhammad or Jesus. The only ones permitted by God are those who act in accordance with his will and his approval. So everything is again according to the will of God. The intercession of the intercessors will never help them. And 25:30 says, the messenger said, my Lord, my people have deserted this Quran. So this is about Prophet Muhammad. And also This verse is about, it refers to God's messenger of covenant, whose name is mathematically coded in the Quran as Rashad Khalifa. If you write down the geometrical value of Rashad, 505, followed by the geometrical value of Khalifa, 725, followed by this surah number 25, followed by the verses 27, 28, 29, and 30. The final number is this, which is a multiple of 19. See appendices 2 and 26 for details. The Prophet Muhammad will also make such a statement as in 25:30 on the day of judgment that my Lord, my people have deserted this Quran, and actually they are not paying attention to it, and they have gone into innovating things which are not according to Quran anymore. So by this, I would end my actually verses here, and oh, or we can go a bit. Oh, I have some other verses here as well. Okay, I didn't see them. So 1147, he said, "My Lord, I seek refuge in you, lest I implore you again for something I do not know. Unless you forgive me and have mercy on me, I will be with the losers." Okay, so this is from uh, with the continuation of the story of Noah that was trying to intercede on behalf of his son. And now Noah says, "My Lord, I seek refuge in you, lest I implore you again for something I do not know." So he's basically, Noah is actually, what do we call it? Excusing himself and apologizing to God for not knowing something and saying it. "Unless you forgive me and have mercy on me, I will be with the losers." 1148, it was proclaimed, "O Noah, disembark with peace and blessings upon you and upon nations who will descend from your companions. As for the other nations descending from you, we will bless them for a while, then commit them to painful retribution. This is news from the past that we reveal to you. You had no knowledge about them, neither you nor your people before this. Therefore, be patient. The ultimate victory belongs to the righteous." Now, after this story, it goes to the story of Hud, actually, who was sent to Ad, and Hud won, and the same message. "To Ad we sent their brother Hud. He said, O my people, worship God. You have no other God besides him. You are inventing." So again, we see the same theme here. We see the same theme that Noah had with his people, the same theme that we saw in the other verses about intercession, that people are inventing and they are disbelieving in God and they are not worshiping God. And "O my people, I do not ask you for any wage. My wage comes only from the one who initiated me. Do you not understand?" And from this verse, we see that the messengers and the prophets of God do not ask for any wage. So if somebody asks for a wage from you, then and calls themselves messengers or prophets, we understand from this verse and some other verses in Quran that they're not actually the prophets and the prophets of God, and they are fake prophets. "O my people, seek forgiveness from your Lord, then repent to him. He will then shower you with provisions from the sky and augment your strength. Do not turn back into transgressors." They say, "O Hud, you do not show us any proof, and we are not abandoning our gods on account of what you say. We will never be believers with you. We believe that some of our gods have afflicted you with a curse." So here we understand that those people are telling Hud that they think that Hud is like a crazy person and he has like a curse on him, and their gods, their idols, have afflicted Hud with a curse. So he said, "I bear witness before God, and you bear witness as well, that I disown the idols you have set up beside him. So give me your collective decision without delay. I have put my trust in God, my Lord and your Lord. There is not a creature that he does not control. My Lord is on the right path. If you turn away, I have delivered to you what I was sent with. My Lord will substitute other people in your place, You cannot harm him in the least. My Lord is in control of all things. When our judgment came, we saved Hud and those who believed with him by mercy from us. We saved them from a terrible retribution. So we see that the same as Noah and his companion, Hud was also saved with the believers who believed in him, and the rest faced terrible retribution. Such was Ad. They disregarded the revelations of their Lord, disobeyed his messengers, and followed the ways of every stubborn tyrant. Consequently, they incurred condemnation in this world and on the day of resurrection. Indeed, Ad rejected their Lord. Indeed, Ad, the people of Hud, have perished. So by this, I finish it here, 1160. If you have questions or discussions, thank you.
Mashallah, thank you.
MashaAllah, thank you.
MashaAllah, Masoud, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing, when we see how Satan, tries to spread the misinformation, like all these, so-called Muslims, for example, they don't really know, like, about the truth that is in the Quran and so many things, but they're all very well informed, like, they're brainwashed, like, on a regular basis of the intercession stuff, right? Like, same with the Christians, how, Satan repeatedly, gives them the message of intercession, like, becomes the basis of their religion. And then same with Islam, like, I remember when I was in Pakistan, like, how after, how they would air, the azan, 5 times a day on TV and stuff on all the channels. And then, after the azan, they would promote the prayers that people were supposed to say after the azan, where they would ask for Muhammad for intercession, over and over. Like, imagine, like, how many times a day, you're bombarding billions of people, millions of people, with the misinformation about idolatry and intercession. And they don't know anything about the rest of the Quran or anything about the truth in the Quran, right? But they know that, or they think they know that Muhammad will intercede for them. And I mean, not only Muhammad and these Imams, like, there's so many kinds of intercession in Islam, especially, for example, they say that if you have a son who memorizes the Quran, your son will take your entire family with you. Or I think they have like a quota, like each person will take like 5 people or something like that. So they have all their kids. Someone becomes a doctor, someone becomes an engineer, and then they have one person in the family that is dedicated to become a hafiz of Quran, who will memorize the Quran by heart, so they can take the entire family to heaven.
I didn't know about this. So, like, you mean like in some Sunni families, they do that? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it's a very popular concept. So I think it comes from hadiths. So they say,
Of
like, if
course,
you have
most of
one,
it must be.
if you have one hafiz in your family, he'll take like 5 people with him or something like that. So they all have like a quota system.
Five is the max, or there are more there?
I think there's a number. Definitely, there's a number.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that in fact is true. And also, if somebody dies as a martyr, as a shaheed, they take somewhere like 70 people. And whenever somebody dies as in the battle or shaheed, they reserve, people will come and pay a lot of money to get the grave right next to him, as this person will also be saved on the day of judgment. I mean, there's so much that kind of nonsense goes on over there, and people don't even read Quran. It's pretty sad.
I think we have to first see in what context that person was killed to see whether that person was considered shaheed or not. The concept of martyrdom has been completely messed up in Islamic countries. Like, for example, in Iran, many people go and fight for the regime, and then when they are killed in battles which are actually to protect like a tyrant or something like that, then they are called shaheed. They are called martyr. But well, that's not the. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, same with Pakistan also. If someone from the army, dies in the battle, they say similar things. Someone dies in a war, they say he's a martyr. Yeah.
It's the idea was coming. Assalamu alaikum. The idea was coming in my mind that about this intercession, people know so less because the Satan has just give them this idea that okay, you are forgiven by your prophets or messengers or whatever they have invented. So they even don't know that what is in the Quran. So idea was coming in my mind. If I translate all these verses which Brother Masoud just read about the intercession in the Quran and translate them into Urdu, and then just one this topic, if we just put it on the YouTube or something, so maybe a lot of people can get the information from that, and maybe they can still, while they are alive, they can save themselves through this information by God's leave, because this is very important, because everyone is just so much worry less about, because they think that the paradise is for them. They have bought the paradise in exchange to be with their prophets. So that is theirs. So they are just heedless and they are doing whatever they want.
Inshallah, if you want, I can share the word file with Brother Suleiman or with you directly, or with anybody else. And if you want to find the verses in Urdu, that would be a great idea to provide people with it, with the concept of intercession, that it's a myth.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
MashaAllah, that's a great idea, sister. I think we should do that in Farsi as well, inshallah, and just make a short video for people to watch. Because what I see among my own relatives is that what's holding them back from accepting the messenger and the miracle, they can see the miracle, they can really understand, and I can see that in their eyes, that it's like I can see the sparkle that, okay, he is a messenger, and this is like a great miracle. But then what's holding them back, especially if they're older, is okay, who is going to intercede for us? And they're so afraid. They have invested so much in this concept that it's really hard for them to just let go.
Yeah, you're right, sister, because if they will just let Prophet Muhammad go or Jesus go, then they think that they are in hell. So
Yes.
because they know that they are not doing good enough to save themselves, their actions. So that's why this idea, you are right, this idea, they are so much caught up in this idea that they even can, they, if they leave them, then they are nowhere.
Yeah, their souls are so much. I mean, I can see that their souls are deprived, and this is the only hope they have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's the only thing really that takes away any hope that these people have of going to paradise, because it's guaranteed idol worship, intercession. Anyone who believes in intercession is guaranteed and dies in believing that is guaranteed to go to hell. If you're not an idol worshiper, you have some chance of going to heaven. But the moment you think that anyone else has power besides God for anything, including intercession, you're guaranteed hell, right? So they're basically, that's a false sense of hope that they have, of course. That's really actually taking them to hell. Um,
And what I have also noticed in when I study their these people and their pattern, their lifestyle, I see that they are not only slaves to these imams and saints and people like that, and they're so much invested in them. They are also slaves to people. So it also extends to their personal life, and they are not aware that God is doing everything. That they believe, okay, this person is doing that and that person is doing that. What if they don't do this? And they're so afraid. I mean, this is like hell in this world. It's not, they don't have to wait for the hereafter. It just happens here. They're extremely anxious, so much worried because their souls is not getting enough nutrition.
yes, subhanAllah. I mean, I think that when people find out that idol worship nullifies all their works, I mean, anybody who's truly destined to believe will any sane, logical person, who's able to see, will want to disregard any sort of idol worship because, we remove ourselves from like any chances of remotely making it to paradise. And all the righteous works. I mean, you could be the most righteous person. You could be like Mother Teresa or better, right? I mean, Mother Teresa had so many issues, but you could be so much better than even Mother Teresa or like the best, philanthropist that you can think of who could give millions of dollars in charity of their money. But the thing is, if you are an idol worshiper, you could spend billions of dollars in helping people, being good, being honest, kind, everything. But if you're an idol worshiper, everything will go to waste. So this should really, this alone should really compel people to believe in the message, especially if they see the miracle of God. I mean, then they should have really no doubt that this is the word of God, and so God is telling them that if you commit idol worship, all your works are going to be nullified.
that they're doing it wrong. Up their minds to think that religion is hard, and these imams, the way they project the religion, that you have to do this, you have to do that. I mean, so many different things that the human mind thinks that forget it. I cannot do all that. Might as well just have. And then they are at the same time, these imams, they also inject the idea that prophet will save them. So they take both informations, so much hard work and prophet will save me, and they do a little bit math in their mind and they say, okay, let's just take it easy. I mean, he will save,
Yeah,
as I was watching this video, I mean, sorry.
yeah, yeah.
And I
You're
was
right. Yeah.
watching a video on TED Talk about procrastination, what goes in the mind of a procrastinator. And it was very much, I mean, I shared that video. I mean, it's very much like the mind of, in a religion too, that there's a little monkey on the driving seat, and what needs to be done, and the monkey keeps coming and telling you, no, it's okay, you have time, relax, I mean, let's do other thing, and keep distracting you, let's have fun right now. And the human mind knows that what needs to be done, but it listens to the monkey until it's too late, when they get to the old age. And when what happens, this giant monster comes in, and he's he comes in and he says, it is too late, you got to do something. At that time, the monkey runs away, just like Satan runs away, and you have very little time left. And that's why we see a lot of old people, they just, when they get old, and they don't know what to do, they have lost all this time to learn about the religion, and they just follow whatever is going on. And I observe these people's uh, especially this old couple, that as I was trying to give them the message, at the same time I'm learning from their mind what's going on in their mind, why they are so, they will come to understand, they will understand what we are saying, but at the same time they'll reject it. And it's just a chaos that people don't understand. They know, but they refuse to understand, basically, mashallah. And also, mashallah, how you say, you have to disown your family in a way that if your father, your mother, they completely reject the submission, though you still have to respect them, you give them charity, or however it is, but in a way you detach yourself from them. Your sister or anybody else, if you really think, if you really have still attached to them, and once you came to the mind, like this the one verses we were reading, that give me your decision right now. That I'm paraphrasing, whatever your decision is. So when you come to that point, this person is not going to take my message. At that time, you need to basically disown. If you still have sympathy and all that, and you're sincere with them, no matter who is that person, then it's, you're, we need to check ourselves, that if my father, is arrogantly refused me and doesn't want to, talk to me about religion, and at that point you still respect them, but you kind of go apart from them. This world is just a stage. It's like Shakespeare says that, this world is a stage, and we all are actors. Basically, we are actors in this world. And as if you go play a drama or a movie or something, and they tell you, this person is your father, this is your mother, this is your brother, and this is the sort of thing we have here, that people are selected to be acting as our father and mother. Are they a real mother, father? That depends if they're really submitters. If they are not, then they are just actors. And as you know, if you are doing a drama and you are playing a role, in your heart, this person is really not my father. My father is at home. And you understand that fact. And but if the person starts to accept somebody, that, oh, this is my father, this is my father, and that's mean he doesn't understand what's going on. That's why when Noah implored for his son, God says he's not your son, though he was his son, but he was not his son, in that sense, mashallah.
Okay, so I'd like to say something here because I see like there's a few things that can easily get mixed up in people's minds. For example, like you cannot disown someone and then still give them charity, for example, and be kind to them and everything, right? There is a difference. So for there's you can have there's two types of disbelievers, right? There's disbelievers and idol worshippers, for example, who might not accept the message today, they might not accept it tomorrow, but you might still have hope for them, They will not be hostile towards you when you invite them to submission. So you have hope for them. They will not be ridiculing and mocking you for your religion and constantly be at you for your belief, you know? Those are the kinds of parents that you have hope for, and you have to be respectful to them. If they tell you to worship idols, obviously you don't listen to them, but you continue to treat them amicably, as God says in the Quran, right? Then you will have a parent or parents which will be different from that. So there will be parents that will be against your religion, and they will be hostile towards you, like Abraham's father was against him, and he threatened him and stuff even, and including Rashad's father was very similar. And so for those type of parents, you can't give them charity or anything. You have to disown them. And once you realize that they're destined for hell, like it says in the Quran, you have to disown them. When you disown them, that doesn't mean that you give them charity or you be kind to them or anything. That means you, for those types of people, you actually run for your life and you don't give them any charity or anything, or you have nothing to do with them. At that point, that they're enemies of God in that sense. But the other people who don't fight you and they're you know, maybe you have hope that someday they can change their mind, something will click. The messenger of the coming also talks about how you have to use your best judgment for people, right? Could be any person, not just your parents. So you continue to be nice to them, uh, because one day they can accept the message and be better than you and me. But someone you have no hope for, ask yourself, do you have hope for this person? If the answer is clear to you, that you have no hope, then you better run for your life.
I mean, if they, even if they, you have no hope, but they're nice to you, they don't bother you, and they're your parents, and you still don't say oof to them, right?
Yes.
No, if they're nice to you, then that there is hope for them. If they're
No,
nice to you in the sense
they
that
give you they
no, if they're nice to you in the sense that you can talk about the message
final
and they
word
won't
that
attack you, you know, you can talk about submission and they won't attack
no,
you.
they
You
just
talk about
say
submission.
that yeah, but they just say that don't talk to me about religion. Anything else, you can talk about, and they give you that final word that there's a barrier, but they're still nice to you. What do you do in that situation?
It's like to you is your religion and to me is my religion. It's like that. I think
Yeah,
if they are
yeah,
like that, they don't bother
yeah.
you, they don't keep you doing your practices, but they say don't bother us also. So then I think that we have responsibility by God Almighty to treat them nicely and lower our
Hmm.
wings of humility and respect them.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. I think that's still, even though you might think that I mean, you may see that you don't have any hope for that person, right? But the fact that the person is kind to you and respects you and doesn't bother you with your religion, he can still someday accept the message. But someone who's completely made up their mind and turns against you, like if you see Abraham's father, or other people that really have it against submitters, like they love their idols so much that they can't stand seeing you not do that, so they will always like find opportunity to attack you, like, or figure out ways to divert you and push you and stuff like that, right? So you will know in that sense, like you may think, like, there's so many cases where you may think that this person is never going to accept the message, I mean, I've had situations where I've seen people that I thought they had kind of no hope, in a way, but they were still nice and kind to me. And specifically one person I always remember, that he even like kind of mocked me. He's like, oh, like, yeah, you believe in that, and you still believe in that miracle of Rashid Khalifa and like miracle of 18 or whatever. you know, and mocking and all that. And I stopped talking to that person, and for after some time, this person really had some disasters, and something happened, and I mean, God allowed him to be in a situation where they needed help, and they ended up in surrounded by a couple of submitters in another country, and ended up seeing them and talking to them, and ended up accepting submission, right, in the most unlikely ways. So I think people like that, even though we may feel that right now you don't see any hope for them, but there may be hope for such people, right, in that sense. So that's why God says, people who don't fight you because of religion, who don't evict you from your homes, who don't mock and ridicule your religion, meaning there are people that are kind of neutral, but someone who turns hostile in a way that is feels strongly against submission, and it comes obvious, like their animosity kind of comes out. That's the kind of person that is no longer neutral in that way. You have to run away from. But also seeing parents, for example, older people may have different uh, it might take, a younger person a lot less time, for example, to accept certain things, but older people maybe stuck in their ways, and stuff. It might take them longer time, anyways, right? In general, older people are stuck in their ways, and it takes them time to learn new things and all that, right? So we still have to use our best judgment in that sense. If your best judgment tells you that your parent is an enemy of God, and your parent is a disbeliever who's destined for hell, then then if that person is even nice to you, that doesn't make sense that you treat them differently. Like if a disbeliever is kind to you, right? And God says we are harsh and stern against disbeliever and hypocrite. Like if a hypocrite, let's talk about hypocrites, right? Because they're hypocrites if they're idol worshippers. Because the verse that says the hypocrites come to you, they say Muhammad's a messenger of God, right? So let's say if any hypocrite, they're hypocrites who can be very kind and loving people, right? So if you know someone is a proven hypocrite and they're nice to you, I mean that doesn't mean just because this person is nice to you, that's not even the criteria, to be nice to a person. So the criteria is really that you measure, their attitude towards submission. Are they respectful? Are they not? If the person is respectful towards your belief and your thing, it's an indicator that there may be hope for them. In my opinion, it's an indicator. If a person has some kind of respect, like, it's not like your parent is nice to you and they see you praying, and then they're like, oh, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? This is not the way you're supposed to do your prayers, and you're not mentioning God. Your prayer is not going to be accepted and things like that. I mean, that's doesn't sound like, that sounds like a person who might be hostile or something, right? But again, you have to use your best judgment. I mean,
Yeah.
and I really think that if you come to this conclusion that your parent, even if it's your parent, is an enemy of God, then God says you disown them. Disowning doesn't mean that you give charity to them and you're nice to them and all that. That's not what Abraham did either, right? He disowned him. Disowning a person means that you have nothing to do with them, period.
What I'm understanding from the Quran, God said that if you continue to treat them nicely and kindly, right? And until they tell you, unless they tell you to worship beside God, do not obey that commandment, but you continue to honor them. Now, if you don't even see, in the light of Quran, what I see, even if you don't see any hope for your parents that they are going to accept the religion, or they are stuck with their old ways, um, still God did not give you any excuse. But I am reading in the Quran that you if they are in need and you don't give them, help them financially, if they are gonna be hungry or anything, uh, they are still your parents, and you have the rights and obligations as well. So yeah, to you is your religion, to me is your religion. They are not bothering you, they are not accepting your religion. Even if they are bothering you, whenever you meet them, you cannot dishonor them according to God's commandments, what I understand from Quran.
So you're saying that then, I think you're saying that you cannot disown your parents. You're saying basically, right? Because they're your parents, they have rights, and you have to respect them. How can you disown your parents if you have to honor them? First of all, right? That in
No,
itself
it's
is a
right according
contradiction.
to the Quran, like
No, no,
look at
Quran is
the verses,
talking
right?
about
We cannot take
Quran
our
is
own
talking no, no.
opinion.
The Quran is talking about in general, the general rule is you honor your parents. You don't even say a slightest gesture of homage to them. You respect them, you give them the highest level of respect, right? That you have give to any person.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot say that because God says that you have to honor your parents, that you cannot honor somebody and disown them at the same time. First of all, these are two contradictions, right? So
There
the
are
only the
but
only
the
the only
disowning the
logical
parents,
Shazi, just one
sorry,
second, please.
Suleiman.
Let me finish. So
Okay,
the only logic, I'm just expressing my understanding, first of all.
mine too.
So
I just
the only logical explanation in my mind is, and I can show you all the verses in the Quran that, I mean, how they fit in for me, okay? Because, like I said, they don't, they can't come, you can't honor somebody and disown them at the same time. Disowning a person is the worst kind of dishonoring to do, you know, to say, you disown doesn't mean that to use your religion, to me is my religion, and let's do business as usual. That's not disowning them.
So
When you
Ibrahim's
disown
example is the
somebody,
best example God
when
set
you,
for us.
yeah,
Ibrahim disowned his father when he threw him in the fire. So we none of us today are in this situation where our parents
he
are
didn't
throwing
throw
us
him,
in the
Ibrahim's
fire.
father didn't throw him
So
in the
how
fire.
we are gonna disown them, and
No,
how
Shazi,
Ibrahim,
1 minute. Shazi, I think there is a misunderstanding. You are misunderstanding Suleiman points of view.
yeah,
Suleiman is saying through the Quran examples, and there Ibrahim, when he disowned his father, Ibrahim, his father, remember the verse, I'm just paraphrasing, where his father said, leave me alone or I will stone you. He gave him the threat his son for the stoning to death. And number one. Number two, Ibrahim's father didn't throw Ibrahim into the fire. That was the king who threw him.
mhm.
And number two, now I'm saying that Abraham then, and his father said, leave me alone. That is paraphrasing of the verses I'm doing. So when Abraham, after the fire incident, when he left them, he at that time, Abraham father was totally, completely with the disbelievers. That side, he was not in his son's side. And when they were throwing him into the fire, he was not protecting his son also. So that shows his actions, that he was a big enemy of God.
yes,
Still, when he left, and then that, so here he said that I am disowning you, Abraham said. So that's why in that condition, in that point, he disowned his father. Now this is the extreme example where God is telling us that when our parents come to that point, that they ask us, okay, leave my house, get out of my house. You are not my children
yeah,
anymore because of the practices or anything. So then, of course, they are like, who was Adam was giving the example, like it's a play in a drama. In this world, they are just to us like playing the role of parents, and we are playing the role of children. Then they are not in reality our parents. So we will disown them. And but and if they will fight with us, there were in the prophet time where parents, they were fighting against their kids, and kids were fighting against their parents in the wars. So at that time, it doesn't mean that they are their parents, so they will not attack their parents' kids, and they will just get hurt through their swords. No, that is not the case. If that in extent the parents reaches, then of course for the human race, God is the priority. God is our only Lord and Master. But if parents are nice and they say, okay, whatever practice you do, we will not evict you. We will not, like Suleiman was reading the verse. So you do your practices. Then God said, be amicable, be lower the wings of humility for them. Treat them kindly and nicely. That is the main Quran theme through Quran. And I think, Shazi, you were misunderstanding Suleiman's point of
yeah,
view at this
Yeah.
point.
yeah.
So
Because
it was
actually,
not like, okay, they are saying we don't practice this religion and then you will start disowning them. No,
yeah,
that
Mhm.
is
this is
not
how I
what God said.
understood.
This,
Yeah,
no, that you are, I realize that you are understanding wrong.
okay,
You
Masha,
are, yeah, you are misunderstanding Suleiman.
Yeah,
praise God.
mashallah. I think thank you for Bia for the clarification. Actually, that's exactly what I was saying. And then also, you know, there's also example of the messenger of the covenant himself who talked about himself, and I'll give a little background on this. You know, I mean, Dr. Khalifa mentioned his own father's situation, and he said that You know, he was his among his all the children. You know, there were multiple brothers and sisters. I believe two brothers and one sister, and he was the favorite child of the father, right, Rashad Khalifa, Dr. Rashad Khalifa. But and you know and we see that because like even he had his father had his own spiritual group, right? He was like a sort of like a Sufi kind of a person, right? And so he, sorry, so he named it after Dr. Khalifa, called something to do with Rashad, right? And he said that you know he continued to invite him to the masjid to hear the message of submission, right? Until one day, and he was nice to him, obviously, right? Doesn't mean he accepted at any point, right? And so he continued to be kind to them until one point, you know, it came that he said he refused to enter into Masjid Tusam because he said, I will not step foot in this masjid until you don't put Muhammad's name next to God's in this
Yeah,
masjid,
that's right. Yes.
right? And you know,
Yes.
the messenger of the covenant responded to him. He says, you're not, he told him, he says, you're not to, sorry, I'm kind of paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly the words, but he said, first half of it anyways, he said that you're not, he says, as long as you believe like this, he said to his father, he says, you're not allowed to step foot in this masjid. He said, because God says that the idol worshippers are full of filth. Imagine he's telling his father that he's full of filth at this point because he realizes that he's going to hell, right? And he was even obviously the same way as Abraham's father. You know, he was threatening to have him killed and stuff like that also. But this is the part I remember that he said that he's not going to step foot in the masjid because Muhammad's name was not there, and he told him that you know he's not to come in because he's full of filth. So I mean that's not exactly the definition of honoring your parent, right? I mean you honor them by not having the slightest gesture of annoyance to them, let alone telling them that they're full of filth. And the word in Arabic that he used, I mean, it's a very strong word. I think is nuts, right? Which is like very impure.
Brother Suleiman, where was this mentioned? Was it like in one of the
It's in
Quran?
one of the audio studies, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, inshallah,
Okay.
I'll send you reference to it.
Yeah, when your parents reaches at that point, of course, then you have to take God's side. You will never ever take that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, these are my
Mm-hmm.
parents, so I have to take
Yeah,
their side. No, never ever.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean that's my point is, you know, like that's the point where you lose hope for a person. You don't lose hope for a person, he says, for, you know, I don't want anything to do with this or something, right? And you say, oh, there's no hope for this person, right? I mean, you go get to that point when you're absolutely sure about a person when they are at that extreme situation where they're so hostile towards you and they're so full of animosity towards your religion that, you know, that's why you have to use your judgment. So it was obvious to him that he had so much you know, hatred for God alone that he would not even step foot in the masjid until Muhammad's name was in it, you know, like. So he realized that, you know, at that point he may have concluded that, and that would be something that for him that must have broken the camel's back. Obviously, I mean, he was not just like any Muslim, right? His father, he was like a strong, like Muslim, sort of like quote unquote Muslim like leader, right? He was like a leader of what is it? Leader of a Muslim order, like Sufi order, right? And he had so many followers and all that. So he was a very extreme example of a person, but he still continued to invite him, you know, up until this thing happened. So I mean, I think we have to set the bar like for hope. You know, we can't say, for example, if someone says, "Hey, you know, your religion is not for me," or, you know, don't talk to me about religion, that you will you know, conclude that someone doesn't want to follow. There are people that, you know, you give the message to for years and they won't accept it. You know, we know examples of people who who got the message, were given the message for many years, and they accepted even a decade later, even more. You know, so I mean, especially the example I always give from my friend. I mean, that was one person who accepted submission, and if you ask me, like, I would think that all my friends that I ever knew will accept submission, except this person, and that was the only person who actually ended up accepting submission, even after the time that he was presumably, like, in my opinion, you know, kind of mocking my religion and stuff like that, right? So we don't know like what strikes in a person's mind, you know, one day, you know. So that's why, like, you know, God says that, you know, people who don't fight you, people who don't mock and ridicule your religion, don't evict you from your homes, etc. You know, you have to befriend them, right? I mean, you know, people of the scripture or anybody for that matter, because they could become submitters one day. It could be better than all of us. So, and especially if they're your parents, you have to honor them.
MashaAllah, yes. I also wanted to mention this point that sometimes in some cultures, like Middle Eastern cultures, like parents tend to believe that they could be the God of their children. I hope it's not the case with anybody here, and it's not the case with my parents, but I've seen people who actually expect, they order their children and they use this verse saying that you should respect. And sometimes they, even though there are, you're trying to be kind, sometimes they go beyond the like what's normal. And so this is something also we should be careful that, like, what percentage of our life is, our days are occupied with the thought of God or with remembering God. I know we can serve them, but for the cause of God, and remember God and know that we are good people, but sometimes it goes just beyond the limit, and we should be careful about that.
Also, I think that's an interesting point. Like you, like some people think exactly that. You know, if God says you have to honor your parents, actually, I was confused about it for some time also. That God says if you have to honor your parents and you have to accept and do everything as they said, right? But I mean, that's not the thing. That's not the case. You just have to honor them and respect them and love them. But doesn't mean that, for example, like, you know, you want to marry someone, and you know, God has given you certain information about what is love and you know, the laws of your religion and everything, and you know, and your parents like someone else for you. I mean, that's the most common scenario, like in this context, I think that we're talking about, for example, right? And they'll tell you, well, you know, if I'm your parent or something, or if you really respect me, you have to marry this person, you know. And then people end up doing that and then regretting it for the rest of their life. But we have to know that we we respect them and honor them in a way that it doesn't conflict with the laws that God has put together. Like, you know, God says, for example, like uh, uh, um, dowry and mutual attraction are the two requirements of marriage, right? And so you don't have a mutual attraction with someone, but your parent is saying that no, you have to marry that person. You know, it's not as simple as, for example, buying a dress that you don't like and your parent likes. I mean, you might want to make your parents happy at some point for something like that, and you might say, okay, you know, I'll buy this dress instead of the other one. But but there can be you know, serious situation in your life where, you know, you have to make your own choices based on the information that God has given you. So in those situations, like, if you listen to your parents instead of what God is saying, then you're idolizing them, right? So that honoring should not go to the point of idolizing the parents.
Yes, especially when parents put too much emphasis on money or what your job is going to be, what people are going to think of you, and these are the signs of like that you should not listen. Or when it comes to immigration, if somebody wants to immigrate, when God has decided that you are going to immigrate to another country, they might actually create some concern, or you may get hurt, like because you're emotionally attached. You are at subconscious level, you're attached to them. But you see that if you stay in a certain country, then you're going to be an idol worshiper. You have to worship your boss. You have to just accept anything that is not fair. So this is something that we should actually think carefully and then decide and actually pray to God that He shows us the right path.
So I'd say oh, I guess I'm kind of late. I wanted us to, and there was another new comer in our study today, and I wanted them to introduce themselves, but I think it's too late.
I can I can introduce her.
Okay.
Actually, yes, she's Nadia, and she's actually the wife of my cousin. My
Mhm,
cousin also joined on Saturday as well.
mhm.
On Tuesdays, he's at work, and then he can't attend the session, unfortunately. His name is Omid.
Mashallah.
Mashallah.
So where are they located? I mean, what country are they in?
They're in Ecuador.
Oh, mashallah.
Yes. And they are attending our Farsi Quran study on Sundays.
Mm, okay. Okay, mashallah. Are there any other comments or questions before we conclude this session?
I just want to make a small comment. So, mashallah, guys, clarifying the pattern issue, because I was suffering with that issue as my father gave me final word, but he's still nice to me. I give him surety, but yeah, if there's not hostility, then I didn't really disown him at that kind of situation. That clarifies it. I just want to say a couple of things about the verse 42 and how interestingly, God mentions the keywords in that verse. As it sailed with them, it waves in waves like hills. Noah called his son, who was isolated. Oh, my son, come ride with us. Do not be with the disbelievers. So as we see that God says that the waves like hills. So these were not just regular water rising, like not even flood. I mean, these were like waves when we see in the ocean. They were as high as hills. And his son was isolated. He was not with his people. He was alone by himself, and where he can see his father on the ark. And this is pretty scary. That how what would cause? I mean, you can imagine any kind of situation, no matter what in the world. Somebody is in that kind of situation with the hills, like the water, like high as hills. Anybody, even your worst enemy, would come to you, save you. You would run towards that person. What would more like this is like a question in my mind that what would cause somebody to reject a savior hand at that moment? I mean, you would take anybody's hand, let alone your father is calling you to come. I mean, this is where it gets so scary, that the ego can rise to that level. And basically he was not the one who rejecting. I mean, it was God who made him. I mean, in a way that he was among the disbeliever. He failed at that moment, so he was not allowed to uh, get on the ark in that sense. So I mean, this is pretty, scary. I mean, that why would somebody reject it? I mean, this is where we need to really, really become humble, as we were talking earlier. That if you are in submission, it's not my smartness, or it's not Abraham's smartness that he became a submitter. It's a huge blessing. It is a question that we probably don't even know the answer. That why some people take the message, why people so arrogant about rejecting the message. And if we are on board, we can think about the message of the covenant building ark, and we are sitting on that ark right now in that sense. And what caused us to believe that requires a lot of humbleness and reverence to God, that the answers that I honestly search, what made me a believer, what made me come to a submission, and not other people. I mean, the story of Pharaoh. I mean, when he saw, when we talked about in the previous, few Quran studies back, then his people sent the magicians, and everything. We were watching following the story, and we said, I mean, these are so many dumb decisions that he was making, but he was not dumb. He was a smart person. We try to, we label that these people are stupid, you know, I mean, or even right now as traditional Muslim think they're stupid. I mean, these people, they have mind. They don't make stupid decisions. There is something else that cause them to refuse. The ego is the number one that comes to mind. That, you know, our worst enemy, and Satan is present. We tends to ignore the elephant in the room all the time. He is present. He's present right now. I mean, he's doing everything what he can. He's invisible, but he's doing everything he can to make us go off the path. Praise God. Just want to say that.
Yeah, Ali, I wanted to say one thing about the parenting. You know, also I remember there's one place where also the Master of the Covenant is talking about the charity also, right? And he says, you know, that even the fact that, you know, you're giving someone your charity, right, and you know that in itself can you know, change a person's heart. For example, when it comes to submission, you know, like they might see you giving to charity and helping these people at a time where they're really in need, and you know, they may look at you and, you know, think that, you know, this is the right path, you know, this person is so nice to me and helping me, you know. So just because a person says to you or says that they're giving you their quote unquote final word, you know, doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, there is no hope for them. You still have to use your judgment, like, you know. And if they are so kind to you, still, it sounds like they might be close to you and all that, you know, then I still see hope for people like that, you know.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
you
true.
might think that you're never gonna believe it, right? But doesn't I mean, you don't know, God will open your heart, you know, someday, uh, because you're probably not at a point of no return. You know, you probably haven't broken all the bridges with God by being hostile and all these things, right? So God, you know, the time may come for this person, maybe, you know, that they will accept. I mean, that's how I see it too. Like, for example, with my parents, I talked to them about submission in the very beginning. They never accepted it. Actually, my dad was kind of hostile in the beginning, and then later on, he was no longer hostile, and my mother was never hostile, obviously. So, I mean, now we don't really talk about religion ever, but you know, there are times comes when they would mention something in the past about religion, and something wrong that they would be doing, and I would correct them, you know. And sometimes they would just listen. And sometimes my mother would, for example, just maybe agree and or move on. Or like my sister, for example, she rejected it, um, one of them, but you know, I still try to, you know, throw in a word there, here and there, from time to time. I don't. I kind of had like no hope for her for for some time, but I still see that. I mean, she's not in that situation where she would be hostile or anything, you know. And so, you know, I just treat them like God says, and give them charity and everything. So
Yeah, that's another thing that like makes me wonder and boggle my mind that I'm the only son, and that I had a very close relationship with my father, and then for some weird reason, that love is gone. I mean, like I still very nice to him. I mean, I support him and everything financially and everything, but the love that in the heart is just gone. I mean, I just wonder what happened. That's weird. That's just, you know, this maybe it's
It's
coming from
not
God and
weird.
sort of is a blessing. It's sort of a blessing,
Yeah, it's a
I guess.
blessing. It's mashallah. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
actually nothing could sever my emotional tie with my close ones. And then after, like, I feel like my whole heart is filled with the love for God, and I know the truth. And I
Mashallah.
still, yeah, I mean, nothing. I was crazy. I was not my husband, or I was not a normal person when it came to the family members. But right now, I'm getting even. I feel like I have more important things, and there's too much at stake. So I understand that. Okay, it's time to just cool down. And it's just something that
Yeah.
happens naturally. Yeah, mashallah.
Yeah, I mean, before if we would get sick, I would be worried, something like that. I mean, now it's just nothing happens, nothing shakes your heart anymore. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, blessing, mashallah.
Yeah, blessing. God made it easy for you. MashaAllah. The person, because it's the heart. How can we divide our heart into two disputing entities? One, how can we say, okay, I love in my heart, I love God the most, and at the same time, I can say, okay, I love the person who is my father or mother, but they are enemy of God. In that position they are. So how it can be possible? So heart is, if with God, then it will go only one direction, and that direction is only God.
Yeah, I think Ali, maybe one other reason you probably feel that way is you kind of have told yourself that he's never going to be a submitter, and maybe that might not be might be the wrong judgment, and that might have caused it too. Because if you because if he hasn't done any of those things to you, then you should still, I mean, should have emotional ties with him in that sense. Like you should even have more ties with him because you want him to accept submission, right? So, but I mean, I know it's not something that we can control sometimes, but
Yeah.
sometimes we might have negative feelings towards people based on things that we think of them also.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But it was just the kind of, I mean, for years I've tried to convince. And one time I mean, literally, you can imagine sitting on the floor, holding the feet that please come to submission. And then he was like, don't talk to me for 5 years. I will see you in 5 years and I will see you in your situation. And mashallah, God made those words come out of my mouth that I can never go wrong with worshiping God alone. And that was it. And after that, he still came back to me asking for help. But I mean, I lost love in my heart completely.
Oh, I see.
You know, I
It's,
was
that
very,
doesn't sound like doesn't sound because like for example in my case like I mean I respected my parents and everything but I felt that my love and respect for them increased when I became a submitter. I started being more respectful and started having more feelings for my parents, even though they never accepted submission. But I did. I felt very different because my relationship with them improved a lot because I started, following God's commandments and watching how I said things or, doing things for them and things like that. And so that actually helped me get closer to them. So,
I mean, it's pretty sad. I mean, you can't even, like, so many times you can't even talk about submission, when you even talk about God alone or, leaving, telling them what the Shahada is, I mean, they become your enemy. They don't want to
I
talk
think
to you.
also the thing is like, you when you invite someone to submission, like your parents, maybe sometimes people get irritated because you might be too pushy also, right?
Right.
So you can't be too pushy. I mean, you can just tell them, and when they're ready, if they're ready, and they will accept it, right? I mean, it's not your job to convert them, right, or anything. You give them the message, invite them. If they are gonna accept it, they'll accept it, without you. I'm not saying you are being pushy, but if you said like the way you're saying it, that no, no, please accept submission, I would get irritated that way. But I don't know. I mean,
Right.
you have to decide in which category your dad is. If he's in one category where there's hope, you respect him and love him, and if there's not, then you disown him. If he gets to that point. But from what you said about 5 years, what he said about the 5 years thing, it really sounded like he is a bit hostile towards submission.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be pushy, you want to be like, the age is going so fast, he's getting older, and then, if not now, then when? I don't have like another 100 years, like Noah, maybe 1,000 years to go on. Sometimes you
Yeah, but
want to be
at the
like,
same
find
time, we know that God is in control, right? If God wants to open up a person's heart, He'll open it. So, but the thing is also the way we present it. If we are a little pushy, it will push them away naturally too. So we have to be careful.
Naturally, yes.
Okay, I have to go. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It was nice Quran study, mashallah. God bless us all.
Thank you. God bless you. Inshallah, our next study is going to be on Saturday at 9:30 Pacific time, and God willing, I will be the teacher, I guess.
No, I will be the teacher, God willing.
Oh, you?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
Saturday is the only
Brother
day
Sulaiman,
I can.
we have reserved the spots.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
welcome.
Salam alaikum.
Okay, salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
So